Well, welcome to the White Paper Review, where I am Brian Boys, and my co-host is Gordon Graham, or maybe Gordon Graham's the host, and I'm the co-host. And if you didn't know, here's a little something about Gordon. For more than 25 years, he has been talking about white papers to anybody who will listen. He has written more than 300 of them, and he has written the classic reference, which I like, which is White Papers for Dummies. I call that's the definitive guide. Anyway, he's also known as the White Paper Guy. Excuse me, that White Paper Guy. And you can, if you, we'll have links below, but if you just Google that White Paper Guy, you will get Gordon Graham.
And Brian, for his part, has been an ad agency copywriter and a freelance content specialist who's done lots of white papers. And he continues to be a creator of things like the book, How to Write a White Paper in a Day. God, I wish I could write a white paper in a day. And it's really a cool course, how to use AI to write content better than AI. We have a lot of fun talking about white papers. And the format of the show is we do one good example that we can praise, and then we do one poor example that we can tear apart. And our goal is not to dump on anybody's efforts or anything, but to try and point out some things that people do properly and some things they forgot to do.
Exactly. Yeah, the whole point of this isn't so that we can hear each other talk. We really want you, if you're a copywriter looking to kind of up your white paper skills, or you're just someone through work you've had a white paper dumped on you. Hopefully this we can give you some good takeaways for that process.
So we're going to do something a bit unusual this time. We're going to show you a B2C white paper. Sometimes people ask me, well, can you use white papers in B2C for consumers? Would a consumer ever read a white paper? And the answer is generally not very often, because consumers want to shop. They want to buy stuff. They don't want to study and research. And consumers often buy things just on impulse. It's just yourself in the grocery store. At the most, you might have a spouse and you're looking at a car and you're trying to pick which car to buy. But ask yourself, do you read like pages and pages of material about each car that you're looking at? Or is it more like you go for a test drive and you like where they put the coffee cup? Like as consumers, that's how we operate. We don't have to submit our plan or our recommendation to some big panel like in a big B2B purchase. If a company's buying something for $1 million, you better believe all the executives are involved in that decision. So there'll be the bean counter, the CFO. There'll be the operations person, the COO. There'll be somebody representing different parts of the organization, maybe the staff. So it might be the chief of HR, and for sure the CEO is going to be there, because it's going to be on his record, on his watch, that this thing was decided, and they are going to argue and look at numbers and look at figures and look at other installs and call up reference customers and really do a lot of research. So it's not like they're just in the store throwing something into their shopping cart or at a dealer's picking between cars. But occasionally, some kind of professional service or something selling directly to a consumer, a company selling directly to a consumer, will put together something that really looks like a white paper. And here's an example of one that we're going to talk about today. So as you can see, this document is from Florida Eye Specialists. So they're a company that does a lot of cataract surgery. And when I saw this, I was immediately struck by the many elements in it that really check off the boxes for what I consider a white paper. Now, they didn't call it a white paper. See, introduction to this guide. They called it a guide. And the original frame of reference for it was like, we want to put it a guide that explains everything a new patient should know about cataracts. So I spoke to the writer of this, and she said what was in her mind, what she was trying to imagine as she was working on this, was a patient who was probably a little older and had just been told they've got cataracts and they should consider cataract surgery. That's a tough message to hear, maybe, and people are going to not know much about it and maybe have some fears and anxieties. So here is the cover. And what I like about it, which I recommend people do, is there's the picture of the person it's intended for right on the cover. It's an older guy. He's getting checked out, at the optometrist. This is probably the machine where they measured his eyeball and came up with the diagnosis that he had cataracts, right? So he doesn't look that comfortable. He doesn't look that happy, but he's not suffering either. So he's the patient, and this is what every patient should know about cataracts. So look at it in terms of front matter. There's a title, there's a subtitle, A Comprehensive Guide to Understanding Cataracts, Causes, and Treatment. There's a table of contents. There's an executive summary, what you're going to find in this guide. So this is like doing everything that I would say a typical white paper would do so far. If you go to the next page,
There we go.
Brian, you'll see that this whole document is organized as a kind of set of frequently asked questions, and it starts off with what is a cataract and what they're caused by, and then what the treatment is. And look, there's some infographics. There's this picture on the right: cataracts affect 1 in 6 Americans. There's the person in green is the one with the cataract. There's a pull quote. Did you know cataracts are the leading cause of blindness? There's another picture of a patient just like you. And then there's a picture down here of how looking through a cataract can diminish your vision. I have to admit, I've been told that I'm going to have to think about getting cataract surgery sometime in the future. I hope it's 10 years from now, but I can relate to this picture because things aren't quite as crisp and clear as they used to be when I look through my eyeballs. So this is really informative. It's got a nice conversational tone without a lot of medical jargon, right? I don't think there's any medical jargon on here. Well, okay, there's 3 common types and they're all defined: nuclear sclerotic cataracts, cortical cataracts, posterior subcapsular cataracts, but they're all described in very simple terms. So if you go on to the next page, this was cataracts and their causes and treating, and then this is surgery. There's one question in here was, can you do anything about cataracts? Can you eat something? Can you soak your eyes in something? No, the only solution to cataracts is surgery. And then there's the steps. 9 out of 10 patients, very successful. Different types of cataract surgery. That's 3 different types. Risks. How long does it take to recover? And then there's the next step. Oh, a call to action. What's the next step? I've written white papers that say that explicitly. What's the next step? Or take the next step today, right? If you've been diagnosed with a cataract, you'll be facing some pretty important decisions. See, it's calm and reassuring. It's like sitting there with the nicest cataract surgeon you would ever meet in your life. They've poured all of their best answers, all of their best research and the most reassuring terms into this. There's another little infographic there, right, with the 9 out of 10 green. So then if you go to the last page, this is about the company, right? And they very properly tucked this on at the back. They haven't blared all this sponsorship all around the front. The logo is on the front. Their phone number, I think, is on every page. And then here's this. And one of the things I noticed about here, it's fantastic. Best eye care practice voted by consumers 4 years in a row. Wow, pretty great. I mean, if I lived in that area, I'd be phoning up these guys when it was time for cataract surgery for sure. And so the goal of something like this from a company serving consumers is to elevate them above the run-of-the-mill company that's just going to be, yeah, you need surgery. Yeah, we can get you in next Tuesday. And you're left sitting there, what about, like this is something that where they packaged up a really nice, caring guide that they can give to that person. Every time they diagnose someone with cataracts, they can give them a copy of this. And it's also on their website if you register for it. So if you're searching for cataract surgeons in Florida and you come across these guys, you can download this off the web as well. And it's been there for several years since before COVID, I believe. So it's obviously working for Northeast Florida. So I thought that was kind of the exception that proves the rule. I mean, I say 80% of white papers are B2B, and then there's another 10 or 15% that are from think tanks or government agencies or NGOs, nonprofits. And then there's a tiny fraction there that are actually aimed at consumers, business to consumers. And this is a really cool example, a very well done example of one of those.
I think it's great. I suppose anytime there's a decision to be made, a white paper might be appropriate, like a high cost decision. I've seen them for if you're going to have a swimming pool, what you get fiberglass, you get concrete, right? And maybe it's going to be 100 grand. That might be worth looking at a white paper. It's not too heavily branded. They
Yeah.
don't really hit what they do. I thought there was one part maybe where they kind of talk about themselves a little bit. Oh, they talk about the three that they offer, but even in their next step, they say, you speak with a consultant and they should be, you know what I mean? And they even leave it a little bit general here, how they should be speaking with you. And so that just shows a lot of confidence because you could say, well, I'm just going to Google the first cataract specialist and go with them. But it seems really, you'd have a lot of confidence. I think having my eyes worked on would make me nervous. And knowing that they produce something like this would give me a lot of confidence.
Absolutely. It's really reassuring. That's the point of it, and it's the best, it's got the best bedside manner of any surgeon you're ever going to meet. It's the tone is perfect, I think. And it's easy to read, certainly easy to read, beautifully designed. And so what? It's 6 pages. As you say, I want to get one set of eyes. So it's worth taking a bit of time. And for sure, this would be read by the patient and their spouse, both, right? They'd say, well, they told me I have cataracts and they gave me this, and they'd be sitting there reading it. It's not intimidating. It's really inviting. The colors are the colors of the company, all right? That blue and that green. And even if you just skim through and read the pull quotes and the infographics and look at the pictures, you're getting an idea that these guys really know what they're talking about. And I like how they used so much restraint, because that would be the temptation for any smaller company spending money on something like this, would be to get in there and you got to call us at the end. But they didn't do that. It was
Yeah.
really tasteful,
Yeah.
and effective.
They, I mean, they up here it does say if you leave them untreated, you could go blind, but they don't, you're right, they don't hammer on the fears. They don't need to. And
No.
the other thing I've noticed is they don't cite medical journal data because they're a group of doctors. I assume they're ophthalmologists. I mean, that's a very high, that's a high level of expertise. So in this case, you don't need to, you know, you don't need to go get some medical journal article to back up your whatever you're saying.
And what consumer is going to read one of those, right? Those things are
Well, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah,
practically unreadable when you look at them. You got to have 2 years of medical training before you can even understand the lingo they're using. So
yeah. It wouldn't make any sense. Yeah. Good. Excellent. I think that's a great example. Also that a white paper doesn't have to try to be intellectual or fancy or hard to understand to come across as smart. You know, here's a case of they're keeping it very simple and direct. I think that's excellent.
I learned something from this. I learned I should wear sunglasses. His sunglasses protect your eyes from the ultraviolet rays that cause cataracts to speed up. So there's a tip I got out of this.
So that was a good one. There was I always feel like if you're going to be working on white papers to get some examples of ones you like, that can help your client, that can help you. And I wouldn't say like plagiarize, but copy what they do right. So both Gordon and I have swipe files of white papers we like where they've done a great job, and we can kind of copy their good points. So all right, so here we go with there we've had the good, and now it's the bad. My example of a white paper that I think could have been better done was put out by Planet Quest, which is it's like a game, like kind of an immersive game where you go to planets. It's multiplayer online kind of game. That's not really innovative. Part of what they do is you can purchase things within the game, and so their new thing is that they use a blockchain, or I don't know, maybe some kind of Bitcoin that you can purchase. So that's kind of how the commerce within the game runs. I'm not really here to critique the game or what it looks like. I mean, the graphics look pretty cool. It's just as a white paper, I thought this was a good example because for a while I was on Twitter just wondering what kind of white papers are being promoted under the white paper hashtag. And it was interesting because I saw a lot of ones that look like this. So I grabbed this one and I actually thought it seemed pretty complete and legit. I've seen some that are like I don't know. I don't know what they are. They're not a white paper, they're not a report, they're not even a good brochure. They just look like someone took you know, a menu template and put in some copy. So this one actually it has the look of a white paper, but you're going to hear in my critique that it's missing key elements of a white paper, I guess. And so but by the way, just for background, it's about 3,700 words over 18 pages. So um, it's not copy heavy. You're going to see there's some big pictures, some graphics, which of course you want. They're talking about this game, but I think the first thing that I noticed is that the white paper has no title. Um, at the very front, it's just Planet Quest. And then inside, they don't really have a title. They just jump right into Planet Quest. Planet Quest is a cinematic gaming metaverse. And then they just explain how the game works. So I was like, well, I wonder who this is for. This is like a guide of how to play the game. This is weird. It's almost like it's been mislabeled. Um, and so they kind of explain the first part here, the introduction. They don't really introduce any kind of argument. They just kind of introduce the game. And so you get to the purpose of the paper, and I thought, well, here we go. This will tell me who it's written for and kind of the argument behind why we've produced this white paper. And basically, again, it just says this paper provides a high level overview of Planet Quest, a blockchain-based game, blah, blah, blah. And then it says it's not it's not intended to be a deeply technical white paper, but rather an introduction to the universe, blah, 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 for business readers and aspiring explorers alike. So I get that, okay, so people that want to play the game, I suppose, might read this white paper. They might not, though. They might read something labeled a gaming guide. I don't know that they're going to read a white paper. And then business readers. That's very mysterious. And I don't know. My guess is that means investors. Gordon, do you think that would kind of
Yep.
okay.
And
That's a very kind of obtuse way of saying it. And then, but it doesn't really say what they're going to get out of the guide. It just may interest them in some mysterious way. Um, and again, as Gordon and I, we kind of believe there are three basic types of white papers. There's the backgrounder that gives kind of a general lay of the land. There's a list white paper that kind of lays out kind of issues and their solutions. And then there's the problem solution, which kind of takes a really nagging problem and gives a good solution to it. I couldn't find that this falls in any of it. It's not really a backgrounder about the gaming. If I'm a business reader and I'm interested in investing in these online games that have blockchain, this doesn't really talk about games in general. It's only about how Planet Quest works. It's kind of like this reminds me of when you get a new board game, you sit down and read the instructions. That's kind of how this works. Um, so it's basically divided into two parts. I'm going to go zooming through here, but basically part of it is like how to play the game. That's all this stuff. And they kind of throw in terms like Genesis engine. And I thought, well, maybe that's a thing. Maybe that's a thing in gaming. Or I found some reference to it on some role play card decks, but it doesn't, I don't know what that means. And they might want to, if I'm just a business reader that's not into gaming, they might want to define that. They kind of say that maybe what's unique is that they're using NFTs to make ownership of the game by the community, and that would have been something that would have been cool to talk about in general if this was a white paper. But then we just jump right into, hey, here's how you play the game, and then we kind of transition into how the money's going to work and how that's organized, and then how you sell stuff and how you make money from it, I believe, and then just more details kind of on how the universe works. Um, and so I guess we talk about a couple things in a conclusion. One, it should bring together kind of the disparate threads of the white paper to kind of help you, just remind you of all the major points we've hit. And then two, it should kind of tell you what you should do. Like hopefully this white paper has changed your mind about something. And so now, what do you want me to do? But it doesn't, this conclusion, it says conclusion, but it just sort of, it's more like a conclusion again to how to play the game instructions. So I'm not really sure what it's convinced me of. I mean, the graphics look pretty cool, but then a lot of games have cool looking graphics. And then anyway, then at the very bottom, we hope you join us. They don't even say actually where I could go play the game in here. No, they do not. You have to search that. And so finally, my last pet peeve with white papers is making the page completely black or a very dark color. Which, and I don't know if I know that your night mode on devices goes black with white lettering. I don't particularly like that. But when part of the reason you have a white paper is that it could be a report that you could print out and take with you. And I know it's not just baby boomers that are printing white papers. It's a great way to grab them and be able to mark them up and stuff. But if you've done it in all black, like I have a home laser printer, and this would use up like the entire cartridge of toner or whatever whatever laser printers use, right? And it would be actually really hard to read if it was printed. It wouldn't come out very well. So anyway, so I guess the critique again, this is low hanging fruit as far as critique, but this kind of white paper is really widespread. And I know Gordon, you've seen some of these too. I thought you had some excellent insight on kind of what your observation about this kind of white paper.
I just went to the website, and the Planet Quest game still exists. It's kind of unfortunately named because NASA has this program called Planet Quest. So like right from there, they're in conflict with NASA. I was thinking when you were talking about the black background too, I totally agree. And I just came up with a phrase, pay to print. You want our white paper? Okay, you need a new toner cartridge.
And it's going to be thicker because all the toner on the page is going to make it a thicker report when you're done, right?
And it's going to be hard to read. Like reverse print has got to be big and bold. If your printer's off a little tiny bit, it'll be grayed out and hard to read. I agree. The graphics are really great in here. During the last run up of Bitcoin in 2017 to 2019, I worked on something like 15 white papers that were for blockchain based ICOs or initial coin offerings. And this looks to me a lot like that. And these people would have grandiose plans for a system and an economy using their coin, and how you could earn the coin and how you could spend the coin. And I would always say to them, like, why do you need your own coin? Why don't you just use US dollars, or why don't you use euros? And the reason, which has become totally apparent these days, is because there was no regulation whatsoever over coins these days. You could create a coin, say it was worth something. If you got enough people buying in, the coin was worth something. The classic definition of a Ponzi scheme. You know, the new investors coming in were propping up and paying back to the old investors. This you could say is the very same thing, because you have to buy a planet or a continent or a guild or a hall, and you have to buy your weapons and your equipment and your spaceship and everything. So it's called that's called pay to play.
Yeah.
As a gaming model. What these guys are trying to position this as is play to earn. So as you play, you're earning rewards as you go on missions and beat the bad guys. You get these coins that then you can. But the more accurate label, I think, that people are calling this is pay to play to earn. And apparently in some underdeveloped or developing countries, there's basically farms of people playing these games and being paid a pittance, kind of as bad as a really bad sweatshop factory.
Okay. Okay.
And they're sitting
Wow.
there punching buttons and going on
Wow.
missions and
Wow.
earning the coinage of the realm for the owners of the company that can then use it to, and sometimes they cash it in for US dollars or euros, real money. And other times they buy up, new resources and things inside the game. So I don't think I have any source to say this game specifically is working like that, but they compare themselves. They drop the name in this white paper, the names of I think 4 other games, Axie Infinity, Dota 2, League of Legends, and they're obviously trying to wrap themselves in the success of these earlier games, but those play to earn, that model has really got some bad press by the fact that you can't get started without paying. So it's kind of like in the old days, trying to be a taxi driver. Like you can't afford to buy the plate, so you
Oh,
got to
right.
work for some taxi driver, and he's paying you worse than minimum wage, and you have to pay your own gas and stuff. Some of the players that try to make money from this are subject to those kind of working conditions. So I can't say for sure that that's going on with these guys, but you can see how much energy they poured into developing their vision of the world and this fantasy world and these missions you can go on. But in business terms, it comes down to like you buy our coin, you pay the fee, and then you get into play. And it's only good if a certain mass number of people join in. And
Yeah.
if they've got their fine, but they've got this white paper on their website today. It's 2022, and today's 2024. They haven't updated it. So to me, that's a poor sign. That they haven't made a lot of progress.
That's very interesting background. And I guess the takeaway from this would be, just for white papers in general, just do a little bit of research about what a white paper is and how it should be structured. And that's just going to go a long way, because the copy's not particularly bad, but just you're gonna, if you don't start with the right pattern, the right design, you're gonna really go astray. And so this is just an example of a white paper where they just basically didn't know the basics of what a white paper is. Maybe should have called it something else. So
Brian, I've got an insight about that. You know how we say white papers should be informative and helpful and practical, not too much selling. This thing is 100% selling. This is a prospectus for why you should invest in the company. The business readers or investors that they want to come in and buy, like the equivalent of Australia on a world or a whole planet. This is who this is pitched at. So they're making all kinds of promises. They're painting a rosy picture in the air, and there's nothing concrete about it. Like even how they're going to spend the money. It's just I've worked with guys where they just draw a pie chart and they argue about is R&D going to get 20% or 30% or 40%. There's nothing behind this at all except a dream of having people give you their money. So this is a selling document. It's not a classic white paper.
well, hopefully from these two examples, good and bad, you've learned something and have a takeaway. And Gordon, how can people find out more if they want to get some resources, both paid and free, for writing white papers?
Well, Brian and I are both available to help people. If you need to learn about white papers, if you need to write a white paper yourself, if you need to hire an expert to write one for you, you can see the links below, and there's links to our services and our books and some other resources for you.
If you've watched this far, thank you very much. And we will see you next time. Bye, Gordon.
Bye.